Hey, welcome back! This video will cover the Interact interface and how you can use it to make edits on your existing sleep or DLC models. So, let's get right into it. If you followed the previous videos, then you know that the Track and Interact function is what can be used to load in the sleep and DLC models into the Interact interface. So this example here shows how I used this in the previous step to essentially work with the sleep and DLC models in the DIPLOMAT Interact interface. Once you run this command, the GUI will pop up, and if you close the GUI, you will have an option to save. That saved file from that Track and Interact workflow will be the .dipui state file that we will use to reopen the Interact interface. So, the first thing that you want to do is activate the conda environment where you set up your diplomat environment. So for me, it would be diplomat_test. So conda activate diplomat_test. And again, as a quick validation step, it should show up here, the name of the environment on the left side. Now that you're in here, just quickly make sure that you are in the correct diplomat environment, diplomat-v. Make sure that the version is up to date, which as of the recording date, 0.3.19 is up to date for us. So now you're ready to actually use the command. So simply type in diplomat interact -s and the path to your .dipui file, which again is the output of the previous workflow where we use Track and Interact on the sleep or DLC models. So this is where the path to my DipUI state is. Once you have this command structured this way, with diplomat interact -s and the path to your DipUI file from the Track and Interact step, simply tap enter. After a couple minutes, the Interact interface will open right up, so I'll be back to you guys with that. So after a couple of minutes, the Diplomat Interact interface is now open. This method is a lot faster than running Track and Interact every single time, and so if you have already run Track and Interact once, I recommend you take the state file, the .dipui file, and open it up using the method that I just went over here. So now I will be going over every individual feature within the Diplomat Interact interface, which will help streamline your workflows. So let's get right into it. Let's start with the easiest things and the most simple accessibility features we have. The bottom bar here is used to navigate through the frames and the motion data. So as you can see here, just scrolling along this line will show you the video with the pose estimation layered on top. To play it frame by frame, simply just click the play button here. To stop the video, you can either pause it, or you can click the stop button to the right of the play button here to reset. These arrows on the left and right of the stop and play buttons are used for iterating through each individual frame. So for example, if we click it once here, it'll go to the first frame, second frame, third frame, and so on. And you can do the same thing backwards as well. So now let's walk through some of the visual settings that you can apply. If you navigate to this gear icon on the top navigation bar, simply click. You can adjust things such as the color map, as well as the point radius. So if you are noticing that the points on your individuals are too large or too small, you can simply adjust the value here, click OK, and it will reflect on the layered pose estimation data. So now let's start diving into some of the features that make Diplomat's Interact interface easier for labeling workflows. So as you can see at the top right here, there is a labeling mode with a drop-down box with several options. Here there are 4 options: approximate, point, nearest beacon source, and approximate source only. Point is a single body part adjustment labeling mode, whereas approximate, nearest beacon source, and approximate source only can all be applied to multiple body parts. So let's start with point. Simply click point, and you will see that the labeling mode has been selected. Now what you can do is you can take an individual body part here, check it off, and adjust it manually. So here I'll be doing the nose for our individual 2 right here, and I'll simply just click it to move it closer to the nose. Maybe move the ears back a little bit. And as you can see here, it was adjusted correctly and in a very manual low-level way where you can adjust it to be exactly where you see that body part is on the individual. The second labeling mode that we can get into here is approximate. So simply navigate back to the labeling mode dropdown and click approximate from the list. The main difference between point and approximate is that approximate can be used for multiple body parts, whereas point can only be used for adjusting a single body part. So we can see that the nose is missing here. Maybe we can use approximate to correctly lay it onto the individual. So here you can see that before there was no point here, but once we use approximate, it can approximate exactly where the nose is relative to the position of the other body parts. The other two labeling modes we can get into are nearest peak and source and approximate source only. So let's start with nearest peak and source. For these methods, you can also select multiple body parts, but simply select which body parts you would like to adjust and lay them back onto the user, onto the individual. Now, the final labeling mode is the approximate source only. This can be used similar to the nearest peak and source. So simply select which body parts you would like to correct and click on the individual to replace the skeleton onto them. Now, as you can see at the bottom, there are two metrics which are captured graphically, which assist us in finding places in the video where frames are affected in terms of the body part not being in the position it is expected to be in. In order to navigate between each of these and make corrections, use these tools at the top left to go from one detected frame forward to one detected frame backward. So if I click this one here, what it will be essentially doing is jumping to the next orange spiked frame at the bottom for one of these metrics. So as you can see, we jump to the next one. Now looking at this visually, everything looks okay. Until you notice that individual 2 over here doesn't have a nose. So what we can do is we can select one of the labeling methods, which is, let's say the most appropriate one for this case is point, since it'll be for an individual body part. Selecting the body part and clicking it into the place that we expect it to be in. Within the Interact interface, there are a couple more features that we can go over that help with your workflow. The first of which being the continuous labeling mode. In order to access the continuous labeling mode, simply hold Control. This will slowly iterate you through the frames in the video. This is useful because by selecting a labeling mode, for my case I will use point, and selecting a body part, you can hold Control, keep that body part clicked, and simply make adjustments to a larger amount of frames at a time. To adjust the speed at which the video is iterated through the continuous labeling mode, simply adjust the value next to the turtle here using the arrows. Another feature on DIPLOMAT is the ability to overlay the probability maps for each one of the body parts. So here we can select something like nose 1, and here for individual 1 and nose 1, we can see that there is a higher score visualized here. And you can choose from all of the body parts and all of the individuals that have been that are within your project. Another feature here is the ability to save the pose estimation data as a CSV. So simply click this button here, download it. I will name my file test, click save, and I think I already have this open, so that's why I got that error, but it will save up into a file that will look like this. So the top first row would be the individual, the second row would be the individual's body part, and the third row will capture the actual metrics, so the x and y coordinates as well as the likelihood. A final useful feature that we can look at here is the ability to redo and undo last actions that were completed. And so if you were in the continuous labeling mode and let's say you looked away for a second and you had the speed really high, then you may have made some adjustments which were not adequate for your project. Don't worry, there is a way to go back. So what you can do is navigate to the top left here and click undo the last action. This will simply, as you can see, reintegrate the original state before you've made your changes. This is all for the Interact interface. If you have any questions on usage, please refer to the documentation or the website where you can see more robust examples on how to use the Interact interface for your tracking workflows. The next video will cover Tweak and how you can use it to correct body part swaps and individual identity swaps. So see you in the next one.